Hey guys, welcome back to the Casual NBA Fanatic podcast. Now, in today's episode, I'm just going to be going through really the game that took place yesterday that I thought made a big dramatic change within the NBA, and that was between OKC and San Antonio. So obviously, just happening yesterday, we got to see these two top seeds in the West just go back at it for a fourth time within about a month's span. And we all know the storyline that makes this regular season battle so interesting. Like, obviously, San Antonio, really just the young blueprint of what OKC are in terms of just the timeline, but also just the major rebuild situation that they both had to go through and like completely have thrived through as well. So in terms of like similar teams with similar situations, not teams bargaining on bringing in high tier free agents as such. But going into this game as well, like we also know what else made this interesting. The Spurs just completely owned OKC, going back to back to back across 2 weeks. Just completely embarrassing OKC, the former champions as well, the team that we thought were going to be the clear-cut favourite, heading back into the playoffs once again, starting the year 24-1. And those 3 losses really marked the start of a 6-6 stretch for OKC, which completely derailed the regular season wins record that they were trying to eye down earlier on this season. And so there were a lot of stakes into this game, and it did mean a lot having that 3-0 advantage from San Antonio's mental perspective over OKC. And we really know what San Antonio could do. Literally, like 2 main pillars that made them so successful in those first 3 games. And it's really what makes them super competitive against OKC, really, in any sort of scenery. And it's the fact that the first one is that they can completely take away the rim with Wembanyama on the floor. And it was also evident in those double big looks that OKC could throw out as well, where both Hartenstein and Holmgren were playing. It just makes it a lot better for Wemby to situate himself on the low block. And also the other pillar is that they can actually match the explosive athleticism of the Thunder perimeter guards. We're talking speed-wise, power-wise, physicality-wise. And that just caused a ton of problems and discomfort for OKC. And all in all, it just wore down OKC's offensive process more than OKC could wear down San Antonio's offensive process. And that's where the 3 wins did come from. But obviously, a few weeks separated from those 3 games. OKC obviously put in a ton of homework for this matchup here. And they absolutely demolished San Antonio in their 4th and the second last meeting between these teams this season. And it was really from their supercharged intensity from the bench, and then just the super critical rim pressure scoring value changes from both especially SGA and Jalen Williams, to me, which swung the tide. And you also got those same pitches from other role players too. Just the speed of their rim pressure attacks made a significant difference here in mitigating the defensive value of a Victor Wembanyama and even a Luke Kornet. And so we know what OKC's downfall is mostly as well. So it's not just if you take away the rim. It's when you take away the rim, it's their inability to make shots. And their motion offensive sets with a ton of handoffs and DHO foundation that they usually run on the perimeter, that actually generates some really high quality, consistent looks game to game. Looks that stay the same game to game. But the actual shot making consistency on this roster, from guys like Alex Caruso, from guys like Luguentz Dort, from Cason Wallace, Aaron Wiggins, these are all guys that can actually go cold in multiple stretches of like throughout weeks. And especially when you're getting like relentless closeouts to the hip from, smart athletes like your Dylan Harpers, your Steph Castles, your De'Aaron Foxes, your Julian Champagnes. That makes those catch and shoot looks a lot harder than they really are. And in those first 3 games, we know OKC really dulled on the 3-point shot, 28% from 3. And really, the lead head of the snake, SGA himself, went 3 for 17 on 3-point looks in those games. And like the similar lines again throughout the most part of their roster, because either generating clean separation in isolation with the athletic advantage, or just the out of rhythm catch and shoot settling looks, both of them just dropped consistently. SGA couldn't create that comfortable separation against a Steph Castle with the same consistency as he can against other teams. Again, they can match the explosive athleticism and the athletic traits in general that OKC can throw. That's what makes this so interesting, not just for the now, but for the future. But in this game in particular, OKC just made it a much more asserted effort to attack directly towards rim attempts. And they did this much more than they did in the previous 3 games. And that was literally what they could create through specifically their isolation actions too. You saw J-Dub ripping through a ton, SGA getting to the cup, pushing the pace in transition as much as he could have possibly done so. And, you talk about closeout attacking with guys like their higher order ball handling guys. You talk about guys like Aaron Wiggins, Jalen Williams, J-Dub, big Jalen Williams as well, being able to attack closeouts, getting general rim pressure attempts, and then also just their continuous slot and fill cups all over the floor. So these are just the different avenues that OKC were able to attack the rim. Isolations, closeout attacks, and cuts. And that's what made them super successful in this game alone. And just to encapsulate just the damage that San Antonio were doing to OKC in those first 3 games in terms of taking away the rim specifically, OKC in general take 31% of their looks directly at the rim. That's their season average, 31%. That number dropped to 19% in the in-season tournament game. And in the other 2 matchups, they only got 20% of looks at the rim and then 27 looks at the rim. But yesterday's matchup saw OKC fully exert themselves, and they took 35% of their shot portion directly at the rim, and they made 83% of them as well. That's 12% more than their season average as well. So just a massive swing in the tide as well in terms of mindset, but just fully exerting the one trait that you actually can control, which is your general ability to get to the rim. And they were doing it with fast, speedy, explosive attacks. Too fast for Victor Wembanyama to be able to rotate over. And so basically, by addressing their biggest weakness in the initial matchups, in this look as well, and it was really just something that takes time as well, because San Antonio, what makes them such a terrifying athletic defense is not just the guys they have on the perimeter, but it's the fact that they can throw out, at this point in time, because he's on a minutes restriction, they can throw out 30 minutes of all-time GOAT-level rim coverage in those limited Wemby minutes, and then they fill in those bench minutes, and they're plugging those in with a super vet like Luke Cornett, someone that can absorb a physicality, wipe away contact drives so easily himself. And that's just a really hard problem that teams have to account for, especially teams that do rely on athletic advantages getting to the cup. But OKC came out. They pressured the absolute living hell out of the rim, and coincidentally, I thought this is also just a really bad Wemby game defensively as well. So they both kind of went hand in hand, and that's not saying much, but it's more just the actual, some of the rim decisions that Wemby can make as the rim protector, I think was frequently more on display in a game like this. I actually think sometimes Wemby, as your job as a rim protector is also a lot of the time, are you going to help or are you going to stay home? Does your perimeter guy have enough of a step to make the layup attempt difficult? Or do you actually have to come over and help? I just think sometimes Wemby can be a little bit passive on those helping sequences as well. I think in a game like this, he probably could have been more aggressive as a helper, or not even, just a bit better as well. But matchups like OKC as well, where they can struggle to make higher order reads, I think SGA and J-Dub aren't the most elite passers when they are in traffic. Obviously, SGA's bailout passing has been a lot stronger right now. But against a team without elite passers, there's no Luka Reeves and LeBron type of trio on this roster. I think in those situations, you actually can be a little bit more aggressive, actually trying to wipe away looks at the rim as well. And also the thing is, when you have the rotation speed and the timeliness that these perimeter guys for San Antonio do, to be able to rotate and plug in those skip pass openings that do evolve when guys have to bail out of reads and Wemby does help, I just think when you have all that luxury athleticism on the backline, you can be a little bit more aggressive in a game like this. But I just thought there were also multiple occasions where just OKC just were not fazed at all by what Victor Wembanyama was doing as the rim protector. And that is a complete rarity anytime Wemby is on the floor. And then going with that though as well, OKC fully devised their own scheme, and they've been doing this ever since the first matchup to kind of make Wemby much more hesitant to help in the first place. And that's really where, in the first half, you see Chet's movement in his limited minutes on the perimeter as well. That's ultra valuable. What you get from Jay Will in the second half as that DHO hub weapon as well. That stuff is absolutely tremendous in a game as well to make Wemby more hesitant. So there's just a lot of factors that went into this game that made OKC's rim pressure a lot more viable. But overall, when you start like with guys like Wiggins as well. Like these are guys that can actually throw together really nice finesse tools downhill. J-Dub just absolutely overpowering guys on the perimeter as well. Even Alex Caruso was getting some really nice confident finishing mixes literally against Wemby in 1v1. And so like it was just a big test for OKC to overcome, just being able to get to the rim against a team like this. And at trial 4, they finally passed the test, and it was from the intensity that they had from the get-go that kind of mimicked quite the same contrast between OKC and San Antonio on some of their initial meetings, where San Antonio just came straight out the gate with all the intensity and all the confidence that they had in the second and third meetings. And I just think it was really good to see OKC fully arise with that same youthful exuberance that we've seen from them in the past few years, to be able to tackle a team that literally had their number in such a huge manner so far this season. So I just think it was great for OKC. For San Antonio, though, naturally in this matchup, they do tend to pivot towards Steph Castle more so as their natural playmaker over De'Aaron Fox. And it does make like a fair bit of sense. I know Fox played really well in that third game, but naturally over the course of this season series so far, it's mainly Steph Castle at the helm. And it does make sense. He just has more gifted, more powerful downhill traits as an athlete. And he's someone that prioritizes setting the table and creating those initial advantages for those high ball movement breakdowns, which are extremely valuable. And his physical and athletic advantages specifically are just more matchup resilient in theory against a team with so much speed and lateral activity as OKC's point of attack do. And that's where maybe De'Aaron Fox can, in theory, he will struggle a bit more creating that comfortable separation, setting the table, setting up advantages, unlike what Castle could do in a matchup like this. And that's where, especially at the start of the game as well, Castle is probably more effective for starting up team offense early in the game. But in this one, both Fox and Castle, to me, had pretty much stinkers. Castle was actually pretty good in terms of getting to the rim, again, setting the table and advantages as well, but both of them did not have a good game here. Both, to me, were actually pretty overwhelmed, especially when you got to the second half of the game. I mean, Fox as well, though, he was basically disengaged completely at the start of this one. I think he initiated only two possessions in that first quarter, and they both came towards the end as well. So they just weren't using him much as well. And then Castle as well just continues to make dangerous reads against switching defenses all game. I know he's really young, but he just keeps forcing connective reads when there isn't an advantage created either. It's like when they're actually switching, he's just going to throw like a really lazy pass off, drifting to the top of the key. And they were just getting picked off like signature reads for OKC, just getting absolutely telegraphed all game long. And that's what actually boosted any sort of sense of transition that OKC were able to get. And it was another high turnover game for Steph Castle. He had 5 tonight, and that's really just the main grapple that you have with Steph at this point in his young career. So, except the helm in terms of the ball handling wasn't great, but also just the other problem that I have with San Antonio, and why I think just that first level of playoff experience, I just think that will be such a huge learning curve that obviously every team has to have. But San Antonio, I think, will feel it in a big way. And that starts with the head of their snake, their 1A, Victor Wembanyama. Now, I know he's been on a minutes restriction, but at his core, like, he's at his real self right now. Like, you see his aggression and the spark that he's playing with against, especially in a season series like this, like, he's completely fine. But his limited abilities as a half-court offensive creator, it's very, very glaring against a playoff-built defense like OKC. And obviously, he's been ultra destructive, ultra valuable in this season series alone when you factor in the defensive side. But offensively, for the most part, this season series has been a bit of a struggle for him. And most of Wemby's success in this game obviously came in the first half, just brutally going at Chet Holmgren with whatever like personal flair he wanted to throw at him. And he adores that matchup as well, and so he should. He's got every single physical advantage in the book against Chet Holmgren's pretty slim frame. He's got the over-the-top advantages against Holmgren's verticality as well. Like, he's got everything. But the ISO-heavy, drive into traffic-heavy type of offense, that generally has less control, and it's subject to tons more variance throughout 48-minute games as it did today as well. So obviously in the first half, especially in the first quarter, he does a really good job getting to the rim, getting to the line, drawing valuable contact. But that sort of drive-heavy offense when you are that tall and that statured, and naturally your coordination is pretty below average overall because you are so tall. That stuff tends to wax and wane, like your effectiveness to actually get to the rim in that sense, especially against a team like this that can switch and throw so many different looks at you. And we saw that. Like, I mean, in the second half, OKC just switched his primary matchup, and Wemby's that same ability against Chet Holmgren where he can actually get that initial dribble down, that was completely gone when they switched J-Dub onto him. That comfortable launching foot is completely gone when you're getting desperately pressured at the hip by guys like Jalen Williams, by guys like Kenrich Williams, by guys like big Jalen Williams too. And so it's not all about the drives. Like, that's where guys like Jokic, SGA, and Luka, they're so damaging, but they're resilient throughout 48-minute games. They do have sequences where they are drive heavy, but they can actually have times where they literally just slow and harness control of games using their strong frames or just their skill leverage to just comfortably work for looks that they have more composure with executing with. And Wemby can do the same, obviously, in different spurts against specific matchups, but he can't do it to anywhere near the same consistency level as those guys. I mean, you literally saw it with SGA in that second half as well, just slowing down control on a lot of those face-up looks, just getting to those looks that he is comfortable with executing with more composure and more balance than especially a lot of looks that he was taking early up in this game. And I thought, again, it was pretty evident, again, in this matchup itself, but like, people can be annoyed with guys like Harrison Barnes and Keldon Johnson, Lindy Waters. Julian Champagnie was missing quite a few wide open threes himself as well. And like, you can be annoyed with these guys for not making shots, but like, you have to also pour blame onto the guys who don't set them up with consistent rhythm and wide open threes off real full-on defensive breakdowns as well. Castle's probably the only one that could do that consistently in this game, actually fully break down the defense and create those picture-perfect wide open reads. Like, we can't act like guys like Keldon Johnson, Lindy, Harrison Barnes. These guys aren't world-beating shot makers because they're far from it compared to most of the league and what most contenders of the league can throw out there. And really, a majority of their combined looks as well, when you go back to it, were just plain difficult. They were with guys completely in their grill on closeouts. I just don't see there's much point in blaming specifically the role players for this point in time. You have to blame the guys who actually manufacture the looks. They're the guys that get the high usage and the high salaries. And against an elite defense like this, that is what ultimately creates those really comfortable catch and shoot reads. I just don't think like San Antonio's point of attack from Wemby, from Castle, from Fox were creating enough of those. And that's where you can see the shot making consistency doesn't carry the same stability in a game like this when you aren't generating the same looks, even against teams like this. But on the other hand, in saying this, like, we're grading San Antonio on the level of the real title contenders. And I think that is more of a testament to the work they've done this season. Like, I'm being super critical, super harsh of such a young team in the NBA right now. They've earned these conversations. Like, at the end of the day, when a large portion of your stars between Harper, Castle, and Wemby at 19, 21, and 22, you're obviously going to have games like this where you see so many bumps in their games that do need smoothing out over time. But apart from this game, I mean, this season series so far has been an absolute success for what San Antonio can do as far as like boosting their belief and their confidence in what they can do already winning right now. And that's the type of culture that you need to build from the early days up. So in terms of San Antonio, yes, I'm being super harsh and critical on Victor Wembanyama. Obviously, I think the slow-paced half-court execution does need a lot of work there. Fox's engagement from the start, or just his overall involvement, does need a bit of a boost in games like this. Like, he is your most talented, creator off the dribble scorer at this point in time. Steph Castle as well, just got to refine a lot of those playmaking duties that he usually tends to, turn the ball over a fair bit with. Like, a lot of things that these guys can actually work on. But we are, because of the success that we've seen them have in the regular season, we are grading them on the scale of championship contenders. But back to OKC, just for a quick stint before we wrap this up. I think it was the role guys that really stood out tonight for OKC. I just want to read out some of the stats from some of the key guys tonight who I just thought were absolutely pivotal in swinging the tide for this one. Alex Caruso, he comes in, 20 minutes, 13 huge points. He finally made a consistent amount of shots against the San Antonio defense. He poured in 4 assists with his typical astounding defensive hounding on the Spurs athletes. And he was a plus 27 in his limited time in those 20 minutes as well. Aaron Wiggins, a plus 15 in 26 minutes, 5 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists. So only not the greatest statistical production stat line, but he was ultra valuable in OKC's athletic advantage shift. And just really his ability to actually pour in some of that capable defensive break and close out attacking juice, pouring that in the starting lineup. And Aaron Wiggins is someone that is substantially more offensively polished as a decision maker than guys like Lou Dort. So you kind of get the clear perks of his insertion in the starting lineup in a game like this, his ability to attack closeouts with the agility, with the finesse handles that he can pour in. He was creating some valuable kick-out looks in a game like this, especially early up. Kenrich Williams, absolutely pivotal in a very, very small time on the floor as well. And he was just making Wemby ultra uncomfortable as well and made him just visibly shook. And again, just hassling the base, making the initial established dribble for Wemby just really uncomfortable and anxious. And the thing is though, for a guy like Wemby, when you aren't as coordinated, when you can actually debunk a guy like Wemby's cognitive process. And so what I'm saying is, the fact that Wemby will be anxious about routine elements like those pound and gather dribbles, those established dribbles, when you're anxious about routine elements like that, you don't have the same mind and mental capacity to worry about other things such as your vision, your spatial awareness, identifying things like help on the backline and just general openings that surface up behind you. And so Kenrich Williams was just exceptional on that front. And just a defensive weapon that OKC just have been deploying more in these recent few weeks. But he completely helps shift the tide to actually slowing down Wemby's comfort in the second half. And that's why I think he was really awesome in a game like this. And my last shout out goes out to none other than big Jalen Williams coming off the bench. And he took Chet's minutes in this game as well. Not that Chet was playing awful. Offensively, it wasn't great. But defensively, Chet was doing well. But Jalen Williams just took it up a notch and gave them a lot more offensive resilience with the ball in his hands as well. J. Will, coming off the bench, a game-high plus 30 in 23 minutes of basketball. And just completely damaged San Antonio with his big physical and just completely mature frame, despite being young. But he was just brutally strong against all of San Antonio's downhill creators. And though J. Will isn't the fastest big man, he's young and he's mobile, but he's not the fastest big. But when it comes down to it, as a defender, if your anticipation and your timing for reading your rotation and your step-up help is on point, like ultimately you don't need to have those speed advantages as a rim protector. And to me, like just watching J. Will as an OKC fan over these past few years, like he's quietly been one of the most impactful bigs in the league ever since he got to OKC and was starting for them in their first play-in run back in 2023. He's just a tremendous passing fulcrum off the bench who, like when OKC drafted him, all of a sudden he was also able to make these top of the key threes and provide some sort of valuable spacing and some sort of gravity frequently as well. And he's also just this super effective screener. And then defensively as well, like the defensive process is what has been so exceptional in terms of the growth over time with him. And I think it actually gets criminally underrated. Like we saw him get glorified in the series against Jokic. And, by title, I think the reason J. Will does get underrated is that he's the third big in the rotation for OKC, and he doesn't get consistently big minutes. But J. Will, and you can tell, like, from a game like this, like, you can't teach those drop coverage timing principles that he has with the hands, with the stature, the disciplined contests, the disciplined physicality, the recovery principles as well. Like, and he plays with such a high motor against every great big in the league. And so basically in these real minutes, there's always a spot in the rotation for J. Will to anchor the team on both ends because he's so solid in his minutes. He doesn't let up a single thing. And he was OKC's biggest weapon in a game like this when they deployed him, and he completely changed the game. 11 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists with 2 blocks and 2 threes. And that's literally a prime Draymond Green level stat line in basically half of a game of PT. So he was absolutely fantastic. Obviously, SGA and J-Dub were fantastic as well in this one. SGA had one of the best halves of regular season basketball that we've ever seen him play. Holmgren, like if you're taking the defensive side again, he was pretty stellar, but the offense obviously was why he was being outplayed by Jay Will in those minutes. But from the stars to the bench to the actual focus on the game, OKC just won this game in a huge way, and it was a much needed booster for their own confidence in what has been a pretty bad few weeks considering just how dominant they were to start the season. So a lot to take out from just a regular season game. Obviously, San Antonio did have their number, but OKC came out in a huge way, addressed a lot of things that San Antonio had their number on, and they did it like absolute champions today. And we'll see these teams, I think, in 2 or 3 weeks' time. Maybe San Antonio can get another get back. I think the last matchup will be the real decider over who holds the actual mental confidence advantage in this specific matchup, which we could very well see like pair up against come playoff time. I thank you guys for listening. I know this has been just a bit of a spiel about one topic, but I appreciate you guys listening. It's been an exciting time in the NBA for a little bit, and I'll be getting some more content out. I don't know if you guys are following with some of the Instagram, YouTube Shorts, TikTok stuff I've been posting out. Getting out a few more interesting debates, and I'll be hitting off a few of them in a podcast again some point next week as well. So keep tuning in, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.